Well, I attended the Air Talk conversation event in Redlands. It was about the Redland or the San Bernardino massacre. By and large, it was edifying event with different speakers talking about how people are responding and feeling in the aftermath. And they had one Muslim representative there, and he talked about how they were doing as much as they can to continue to educate their Muslim people about what real jihad is. It's not a physical response, but a spiritual matter within. And the sheriff was there, or I guess the chief of police for San Bernardino. The one we heard on the radio most of the time in the police press conferences. Larry Mantle led the conversation, as usual. There were a few Christian representatives there, including the chaplain for Redlands University. It was at the University of Redlands. And then after all the talk and conversation, there was a question and answer time, and they just had people write out their questions, and they picked a few out of the basket that they thought were the best questions, and had those people come up and say their questions aloud on the microphone. And there was one Muslim girl there with her head wrap, and of course her question was about how she was still afraid to come out and even go grocery shopping because of her fear of a backlash against Muslims. And suddenly, as I was listening, I realized the whole thing the whole conversation was turning towards being sensitive and caring for the Muslim population. And in general, I thought that's what I was afraid this whole Air Talk session was going to be about, is really trying to train and educate the San Bernardino and Redlands people about not stereotyping all Muslims. And of course there was some of that again, and this Muslim gal highlighted that. It was suddenly all about her and all about Muslims. And I felt kind of disenchanted by that. I thought, that's what I was afraid of, that was going to happen, and it was just going to be a huge left-wing liberal love fest for Muslims, rather than an outpouring of care and concern for the actual victims and their families. Were any of those people in that room Muslims? I don't think so. As far as I've heard, I haven't heard that any of them were Muslims. So we have 14 dead people, 14 wounded people, and then but then all the conversation is about, let's be caring and kind and more sensitive about Muslims and not stereotype. And then this gal comes up and says how she's afraid to even go grocery shopping because she's Muslim. I just felt kind of turned off by that, The Muslim representative himself, who was on stage, I thought he was pretty good. He didn't turn it into a thing about persecuting Muslims, although he did kind of in a veiled way mention Donald Trump and how his comments were inflaming things, but there hasn't been any reports of any Muslims being persecuted or hurt by any angered citizens in the U.S. I haven't heard of any. So it's a non-issue, really, as far as I can. Until something actually happens, it is a non-issue. So why do we focus on that so much? It's like we're just treating Americans as stupid idiots who just need to continually be told and retold, oh, you know, not to stereotype, and we're such dumbhead people, we need to be told it over and over and over again. By the liberals, of course. And of course that room was full of liberals, and they were okay, but you could tell some of them were just a little too far left. Larry Mantle's usually pretty good. He's moderate and a good representative for NPR, but let's not make this all about being, you know, about the Muslims being persecuted. I mean, that's ridiculous. Sure, a lot of Muslims have been killed. Even the Muslim representative mentioned that as well, but the Muslims are not, I mean, they're not going after other Muslims as much as they are going after non-Muslims. And even though Muslims are collateral damage, and even some Muslims are intended targets, I guess, because the extremists believe that some of these moderate Muslims are just as much unbelievers as any non-Muslims. But the gal who asked the question about how she was still afraid to go grocery shopping, she highlighted the fact that this was all about Muslims, and the fact that they chose her to ask the question shows that they were still trying to train us far-right whites how to be loving, kind people, just like the liberals. You know, we have to be the liberals have to keep training us and educating us, you know, because they know better than us all the time, of course. And it really gets tiring, very tiring.